Wednesday, May 7th, 7 a.m. Tsubaki wakes up to the same alarm he's heard a dozen times before. This is his reality now, a never-ending time loop. He's not alone in this, though. He's got his two childhood friends, Himawari and Oda. To everyone else, they're just a close-knit trio, but for Tsubaki, things are much more complicated. Himawari is always the energetic one. She tells him their friendship is special, and that's exactly why he's decided to do what he's doing. Lunchtime is her favorite part of the day. Tsubaki watches her enjoy her meal, thinking she's never looked cuter than when she's just relaxing in the midday sun. They usually wait for Oda, their other best friend. But lately, Oda's popularity has been making their three-way lunches a lot harder to pull off. Oda finally arrives, bag in hand, and an apology on his lips. The second he shows up, Himawari's entire mood shifts. He says lunch just doesn't feel right unless all three of them are there. To make peace, he brought some sunshine bread to share with the group. It's their tradition, splitting everything three ways. Oda rips the bread apart, handing out the pieces like it's a big deal. Himawari is practically glowing. Tsubaki just watches, knowing full well that Oda always makes sure she gets the biggest piece. Then, Oda turns to Tsubaki for some advice. He's been getting bombarded with lunch invites from other kids and doesn't know how to handle it. Apparently, he's been getting abducted by classmates left and right. Being the most popular guy in school has its downsides. He pulls them both close, insisting that he only wants to spend his time with them. Tsubaki looks at him and realizes they're just in different leagues. Tsubaki suggests an alternative. If lunch is too busy, they should just hang out more after school instead. Oda loves the plan. He tells Tsubaki to look after Himawari while he's busy, trusting his friend completely with the girl they both care about. Himawari is thrilled with the idea. Tsubaki just agrees, even though his heart is doing backflips for all the wrong reasons. The other students find Oda again, and he waves goodbye as they drag him off. Tsubaki is left behind, feeling the weight of the situation. Oda's friends are already planning a karaoke trip. He just laughs and goes along with it, the perfect social butterfly. But on the walk home, it's finally Tsubaki's turn. For a little while, he has Himawari all to himself. He looks over at her, but she seems distracted, lost in her own thoughts as they walk side by side. He mentions bringing something to split three ways next time to break the silence. Suddenly, she stops and tugs on his sleeve. She gives him a massive smile and thanks him for everything. Tsubaki is frozen, completely caught off guard by the gesture. In that moment, he realizes he loves her. He almost reached out to grab her, to tell her everything, but he stopped himself just in time. He bolts. He tells himself that he can't do this. If he acts on his feelings, he'll destroy the one thing they all cherish. He collapses against a wall, gasping for air. He's known the truth for a long time, but he's been too scared to face what it means for their friendship. He makes a choice. He'll be the one to bring Oda and Himawari together. He thinks it's the only way for everyone to be happy. The next morning, Himawari is the one waiting for him. It's a rare sight, but Tsubaki is the one who has something heavy on his mind. He doesn't waste any time and asks if she likes Oda. She's so shocked, she can barely get a word out. She tries to laugh it off, but Tsubaki isn't playing around. He's seen how she looks at Oda. There's no point in hiding it anymore. He reminds her of how much Oda has changed, from the smallest, weakest kid to the guy everyone admires now. Finally, she breaks. She admits she's always liked him, confirming what Tsubaki already knew in his heart. Tsubaki promises her right then and there that he'll make her feelings come true. He's going to make sure they end up together. He marches over to Oda's class and drags him away, telling the other guys he needs to talk about some guy stuff. They find a bench to sit down. Oda is confused, wondering what could be so important that it couldn't wait until after class. Tsubaki asks him point blank if he's going to date anyone. Oda just sighs, saying he doesn't think that's even an option for him. Tsubaki pushes harder, telling him that having a girlfriend might actually make his life easier with all the attention he gets. Oda snaps back, saying their time as a trio is what matters most. Tsubaki just tells him he'll handle that part and runs off. He walks away, his own heart heavy. He's doing what he thinks is best, even if he's the one who ends up alone. He starts talking to all the friends who follow Oda around, clearing the path so no one gets jealous or stand in the way. Later that night, Oda catches up to him. He wants to know what Tsubaki is really up to, interfering with his social circle like that. Oda sees the look in his eyes and realizes he's dead serious. Tsubaki doesn't flinch, telling him he knows about Himawari's feelings. He says it clearly. He wants the two of them to get together. He asks Oda if he's okay with that, his hands clenched tight. He grabs onto Oda's shirt, his voice breaking as he begs him to make her happy. He tells himself this is the only way, even as his heart breaks. Oda is worried. He knows this is what Tsubaki wants, but he's afraid it means their friendship is over. Tsubaki just tells him not to worry. Tsubaki forces a smile, begging Oda to just face Himawari's feelings. He says he's weak and can only entrust her happiness to him. Then I'll do it. Oda finally gives in, looking Tsubaki right in the eye with a newfound resolve. It worked. Himawari is super happy after the confession. Tsubaki watches from a safe distance, telling himself this is the right thing. She runs up to him later, her face beaming as she shouts how much she loves him. As a friend, obviously. Tsubaki just stands there, stunned. Oda was more serious than Tsubaki had ever seen him. The confession was a success, and the couple was finally official. But that night, he can't hold it in anymore. Tsubaki cries himself to sleep, telling himself that as long as she's happy, his own pain doesn't matter. Beep, beep. He wakes up to the same alarm. The date on his phone says Wednesday, May 7th. Again. Smash. He slams his hand against the bed. This is the 12th time he successfully paired them up, only to wake up at the start of the week. He's back in the classroom, hearing the same lecture about Golden Week. He's stuck in a loop he can't seem to break. I'm Tsubaki Aga, and I've been repeating this same week from May 7th to May 13th over and over again. I don't know why, and I don't know how to escape. He watches the school day play out exactly like the dozen times before. Loop number 13. Himawari is dragging him along just like she always does, completely unaware of what he's going through. Lunchtime under their favorite tree. Tsubaki sits there with a blank expression, waiting for the trigger that usually ends the loop. Himawari notices he's spaced out. She gets right in his personal space, her eyes full of worry. She tells him she won't just ignore it if he's suffering. Tsubaki can only mutter a thank you, his heart heavy with secrets he can't share. Oda shows up with the usual sunshine bread. Tsubaki already knows every word he's going to say before he even opens his mouth. Himawari is impressed. Tsubaki predicts the bread split and every other move Oda makes, looking like a mind reader. He decides to try something new. He won't sit with them for lunch today. He needs to see if his absence changes anything. He breezes through a quiz, getting a perfect 100 because he's already taken it 12 times. It doesn't even feel like a win anymore. He's walking through the halls when he hears a commotion. It's a familiar sound, but with a nasty edge to it. Oda and Himawari are having a massive blowout in the middle of the corridor. Everyone is stopping to watch the drama unfold. They spot him and immediately drag him into their mess. Tsukuen, help me out here. They start blaming each other for the weird atmosphere. Tsubaki realizes that by ditching them, he's messed up the whole vibe of the group. Oda is fuming, and Himawari is on the verge of tears. They're fighting about who's the one actually dragging who around. Tsubaki tries to get them to listen, but they're too busy screaming at each other to care. He can't take the guilt. He drops into a full-blown Dajiza, bowing his head to the floor and apologizing for everything. The sudden move shocks them both into silence. Oda backs off, but the air between them is still super awkward. Himawari huffs and storms away. Oda does the same, and just like that, the trio is broken. Lunch is ruined. Himawari won't even walk home with him until the whole thing is settled. Tsubaki is left alone. He sits on the curb, his head in his hands. Every time he tries to fix things, they just seem to get worse. He thinks back to all their happy memories. In all their years together, the three of them had never fought once, until he started playing God. Hey, a voice calls out from above. Tsubaki looks up to see a girl he's never noticed before leaning out of a window. Whoosh! She jumps down and lands perfectly on her feet. Tsubaki is caught completely off guard. She calls him Agakuen and mentions his childhood friends. She knows exactly who he is. She leans in close, asking if his friend started dating and if he was the one who helped them get together. Tsubaki is frozen. Who is this girl, and how on earth does she know what he's been doing? They end up a local restaurant. She sips her drink with a smug look, clearly enjoying his confusion. She's incredibly playful, teasing him for staring too intensely. She's like a puzzle he can't quite solve. He admits he has no idea who she is. She just giggles, saying she might have been a bit full of herself. She finally introduces herself. Kidweshi, Class 3B. Same class as Himawari. Tsubaki realizes that's why she knows him, but there's still something about her that feels off. Kidweshi, a playful girl from Class 3B with long wavy hair and a sharp, fox-like gaze, laughs as she teases Tsubaki about his weird reputation. She's surprisingly blunt, making Tsubaki feel like he can't quite keep up with her pace. She explains how people always struggle to write her surname while Tsubaki watches her, thinking that despite her mischievous vibe, she might actually be a decent person. Tsubaki thanks her for the information, catching her off guard. Kid finds it endearing that he's the type to express gratitude first, her playful fox persona coming out as she lets out a giggle. She leans in closer, her expression shifting from teasing to something more intense as she sips her drink. Tsubaki feels his heart skip a beat, realizing she's more perceptive than she looks. You got memories of things playing out differently than they are now, right? Ki drops the question casually, but it hits Tsubaki like a thunderclap. Tsubaki is stunned, realizing there's a chance she's looping too. He wonders if they could find a way out together if they share what they know. He clarifies that it's not exactly memories for her. It's more like a vague hunch or a feeling that things have played out this way before. She describes it as a constant fuzzy feeling that's been there the whole time. Tsubaki listens intently, trying to gauge the depth of her awareness. She admits she only has faint traces of last week's memories and that she only approached him to confirm her suspicions. Tsubaki remains silent, his mind racing. Keed catches his reaction and grins, sensing that he knows way more than he's letting on. She enjoys watching him squirm under her scrutiny. Tsubaki realizes she isn't exactly like him, and likely isn't the key to breaking the loop. He decides it's best not to consult her further. Even so, Keed starts sticking to him like crazy. She's constantly asking to grab tea and smiling that toothy, mischievous grin every time they meet. The next day at school, Tsubaki tries to distance himself, but Keed isn't one to take no for an answer. She seems determined to stay by his side. She grabs his arm and pulls him along, insisting that she still has plenty to discuss. Tsubaki is completely overwhelmed by her aggressive, clingy behavior. In the hallway, Himawari and Oda spot them. They both stop dead in their tracks, shocked to see Tsubaki hanging out with a girl they don't recognize. Himawari looks worried, while Oda is visibly shaken. Oda suddenly dashes toward them, his face a mask of confusion and mounting concern. Tsubaki ignores the pouting Keed, thinking it's too risky to explain the loop to someone so unpredictable. He decides to keep things vague for now. Oda bursts onto the scene, demanding to know what the hell is going on. He looks at Tsubaki with an intensity that borders on desperation. Oda gets right in Tsubaki's space, asking the question on everyone's mind. Did you start dating Weshi? Tsubaki can only look on in shock. Tsubaki denies it instantly, but Oda is hurt that his best friend didn't talk to him about it first. Ki just watches the drama unfold with quiet amusement. Something suddenly clicks for Tsubaki. He sees the genuine distress in Oda's eyes and realizes he needs to stop running from the truth. He remembers how Oda always hesitated to date Himawari in every loop. He starts to suspect that Oda's loyalty to him is the reason why. Tsubaki pulls Oda aside and tells him everything. He explains the time loop and his desperate, repeated attempts to fix their lives. Oda is speechless, his eyes wide with shock as he tries to process the idea of Tsubaki being stuck in a never-ending cycle of the same week. I can tell just from the way you're talking, there's no way you'd joke about something like that. Oda believes him, his expression softening with genuine sympathy. Oda grabs Tsubaki's shoulders, telling him to never try to force him and Himawari together again. He hates that Tsubaki has been suffering alone all this time. Oda says he just wants Tsubaki to be happy, even if it means things don't work out with Himawari. His hand rests on Tsubaki's shoulder in a gesture of absolute support. Tsubaki is stunned by the depth of his friend's feelings. He realizes that, to Oda, he's always been the number one person in his life. Oda makes a final declaration. He will never date Himawari. Tsubaki is left alone with his thoughts as the scene fades into a cold, rainy evening. Standing in the downpour, Tsubaki looks up at the dark sky. He wonders if the loop continues because his own heart hasn't fully settled on what he truly wants. Suddenly, Himawari appears with an umbrella. She's horrified to see him, standing there completely soaked, her voice full of frantic worry. She grabs his arm and starts dragging him along, scolding him for being so reckless. Tsubaki is too lost in his own thoughts to resist her pull. Himawari catches a glimpse of the Yu-Sao expression on his face, and her heart aches. She tells him there's no way she could just leave him alone when he looks like that. They arrive at Tsubaki's apartment. Himawari immediately goes to find him some dry clothes, familiar with his home despite it being a while since she last visited. She tells him to go take a shower immediately while she makes him something warm to eat. Even after all this time, she moves through his kitchen with total ease. Tsubaki comes out of the shower to find her in the kitchen, her hair tied back as she prepares food. The domestic scene feels warm and incredibly familiar. Himawari is focused on her cooking, looking totally adorable as she tastes the soup. Tsubaki thanks her, feeling a rush of gratitude for her constant presence. Himawari responds with a bright, beaming smile that melts Tsubaki's heart. In that moment, he realizes that he truly, deeply loves her. He watches her from behind, feeling a bittersweet ache. He wonders if she's curious about what he and Oda were talking about, but she says she only cares about him right now. Looking at her small frame, Tsubaki realizes that she's actually stronger than him. He knows his feelings might never come true, but he simply can't throw them away. Himawari finishes her work and turns around, but she suddenly loses her footing. Tsubaki's instincts kick in as he moves to catch her. He catches her in his arms, pulling her close to his chest. They frozen in an intimate embrace, their faces just inches apart as Himawari blushes a deep crimson. Himawari is flushed with embarrassment as Tsubaki catches her, her heart racing as she stammers out a thank you. She's so flustered she can barely meet his eyes, the intimacy of the moment making her pulse quicken. Tsubaki looks down at her with a tender, melancholic gaze, his heart full of a quiet warmth. He's just relieved she's safe, thinking of her as the girl he treasures above all else. Himawari buries her face in her hands, her embarrassment reaching a fever pitch as she feels the heat radiating from her skin. Tsubaki watches her with an affectionate smile, noticing that even her ears have turned a vivid shade of crimson. Still hiding her face, Himawari softly asks if they can stay in that moment just a little longer, her voice barely a whisper. Tsubaki feels a surge of overwhelming joy, realizing that for the first time, she's reacting this way because of him. A sudden realization washes over Tsubaki as he thinks back to Oda's words. He notices that the persistent, dizzying sensation of being stuck in the loop has finally vanished, replaced by a clear sense of purpose. With a newfound clarity, Tsubaki decides that facing his true feelings is the only way to break the cycle. He looks at Himawari with a steady, determined gaze, ready to be honest with himself for the first time in 13 loops. Tsubaki gives her a gentle smile, making Himawari peek up through her fingers in curiosity. She admits she just wanted to see what kind of expression he was making in that intimate moment. Tsubaki pulls her into a close embrace, his mind made up to finally confess his love. He vows to turn her gaze, which has always been fixed on Oda, toward him and him alone as they move toward an uncertain future. Himawari runs off in tears, leaving Tsubaki standing there, completely stunned by the rejection. He slaps his own face to wake up. He's in shock, but he figures he can just try again when the day loops back to the 7th. The alarm goes off, and Tsubaki rolls out of bed, expecting to see the same date as always. He checks his phone and freezes. He straight up drops the thing when he sees what day it is. He's outside school, staring at his screen. It's Wednesday, May 14th. The loop actually broke, but he's a whole week ahead now. He sees Himawari down the hall and tries to keep it together. She spots him and immediately panics. She bolts past him with a quick apology. Tsubaki just stands there, realizing things are officially awkward. He heads to the classroom looking for Oda, but his buddy is nowhere to be found. Even the other guys haven't seen him. Tsubaki figures Oda is avoiding him because of the confession drama. He really needs to talk to someone who knows what's going on. He sees Keed in the hallway. Since she dropped hints before, he thinks she might be his only hope for an ally. He approaches her, but Keed looks at him like he's a total stranger, asking if his name is Aga. He mentions they had tea together just last week, but she just stares back and says this is the very first time they've ever talked. Tsubaki is losing it. Keed doesn't have time for this and asks if she can get back to her lunch. He wonders if Keed is caught in a completely different loop cycle. Either way, he's now totally alone in this mess. Reality starts to sink in. He's lost his friends, and he still hasn't processed Himawari's rejection. He decides he won't give up. He'll break this loop as many times as it takes to fix things. He finds Himawari again and tries to talk it out, confessing once more in hopes of a different result. It's no use. She just cries harder and apologizes over and over. He realizes he's only making things worse for her. Days pass, and Tsubaki is a shell of himself in class. Even his classmates can tell something is seriously wrong. He decides he'd rather go back to the original loop on the 7th. At least then, he hadn't blown up his entire life yet. He wonders how to trigger a reset. Maybe a sudden shock or an impact is the key. He ends up on the rooftop, staring down. He's terrified, but he feels like this is the only way back to the start. He takes the plunge, crashing through the trees and slamming into the ground. He survived with just minor scratches and a massive scolding from the teachers. He couldn't even get that right. Another week passes. It's May 20th now, and he's tried everything to reset, but the days just keep moving forward. He sits in his room, completely broken. He realizes he just has to accept this reality and keep living, no matter how much it hurts. The alarm beeps again. Tsubaki drags himself up, expecting another miserable day. He checks his phone, and his heart stops. It's Wednesday, May 14th again. A new loop has started. He's back at the beginning of the week. He thought he finally escaped the cycle, but now he's just trapped in a different one. He tries to stop panicking and clear his head. He needs a plan, and he needs it fast. Oda shows up at school like nothing happened. Tsubaki realizes Oda didn't even try to contact him in the previous version of the week. Tsubaki calls him out, but Oda seems down. He tells Tsubaki he should be spending time with Himawari instead. Tsubaki drops the bomb that she rejected him. Oda's eyes go wide. He straight up can't believe it. Tsubaki realizes Oda was only staying away to give them space. Oda gets worked up, wondering what Himawari was even thinking. Oda is genuinely baffled. He asks Tsubaki why a great guy like him would even care what someone like Oda thinks. Oda gets serious. He tells Tsubaki that the person he is today is all thanks to him. He reminds Tsubaki of how they were as kids. Tsubaki was the one who taught him everything and pushed him to be better. Oda says Himawari really missed out on what matters. Tsubaki is stunned. He never knew Oda looked up to him that much. Oda gives him a little slap on the shoulder to cheer him up. Tsubaki finally feels like he has his friend back. Suddenly, Keed walks up to them with a big smile. In the background, Himawari is watching them with a look that's honestly kind of creepy. Keed calls Tsubaki by a nickname and calls him a Cupid. Tsubaki is confused by her sudden friendliness. Himawari is caught off guard by the response. Keed then asks if Oda is the boyfriend she heard about, leaving everyone even more confused. Keed seems to be telling the truth, but makes no sense. Her memories are completely different from Tsubaki's. Himawari watches them from a distance, her heart heavy. She can hardly face him after what happened. Heed continues to analyze the situation. She points out that Tsubaki might only be seeing Oda as the person he is now because of the loop. She leans back, deep in thought. Even so, the way things are unfolding is strange. Later, Tsubaki sits alone outside, exhausted. He never thought things would turn out like this, but maybe this new perspective is the key to something. Suddenly, Keed finds him. She stands over him with a grin, having tracked him down. She notes that he doesn't seem like the type to just hang around other classes. Yet here he is. She throws his own questions right back at him. She gets close, noting that he's acting like he's known her forever. She can tell there's something more to him. Key jumps down and admits that she feels a bit different from everyone else too, like she's also on the outside looking in. She slams her hands down next to him, getting right in his face. She's interested and wants to know exactly what's going on with him. She drops the bombshell. She knows they're both repeating a specific period of time. She's in a loop too. Tsubaki is stunned into silence. It's the confirmation he never expected to hear. Keed explains that while he remembers everything clearly, her own memories are fuzzy. They're on different loop cycles. She realizes that for her, they had never technically happened. Tsubaki is left wondering if he should tell her more. She sighs, realizing he's been suffering through all this by himself this whole time. It's a heavy burden for one person. Then she brightens up, realizing she's the only one who truly understands how he feels now. She grabs his hand and pulls him close. She notes that he's tried everything to escape the loop, even bringing Oda and Himawari together. His face tells the whole story. She taps him on the chest, reminding him that there's a limit to what he can do alone. That's what companions are for. She tells him she wants to escape this cycle together. She pulls on his sleeve, eager to cooperate. Then she makes a wild suggestion. She wants them to try going out together. Tsubaki is completely caught off guard. He's genuinely confused, but she just laughs it off. Since they don't know the conditions for the loop to end, they have to try things they'd never do normally. She pokes his cheek, teasing him about his reaction. She's already decided they're a couple now. She pouts, asking if she's just not his type or not cute enough. Tsubaki starts to panic, try to explain himself. He admits that he thinks she's actually pretty attractive. He just stares at him, waiting for him to finish his thought. He wonders why a girl like her would go for a plain guy like him. He just smiles, finding his formality adorable. She tells him he's not plain at all, and that she's never met anyone like him. She's genuinely happy to have him as a companion. Tsubaki's heart skips a beat. It's the first time he's ever been praised like that, and he can't help but feel a little happy. They agree to get along from now on. Keed is all sparkles and excitement, while Tsubaki is still a bit shell-shocked. Himawari watches from the shadows, her heart aching. She knows she's the one who rejected him, but seeing him with someone else still hurts. Suddenly, she sees flashes of a hospital room and medical equipment. Her memories are starting to show signs of a strange change. She's left gasping, unsure of what just happened. The world around her feels like it's shifting. Oda is shocked to see them together, unable to believe that Tsubaki has actually started dating Keed. Tsubaki confirms it's true. He tells Oda about the loop, and how Keed is a loop companion who's also stuck in time. Oda is still processing the news. Tsubaki explains that since they have no leads on escaping, they have to try things they've never done before. Oda sighs, but he seems to accept the situation. Tsubaki is just relieved that his friend is trying to understand. Oda clarifies that he's not exactly cheering them on, but he's not against it either. Tsubaki is just glad they're still on good terms. He thinks about the key to breaking the loop. Keed watches them from a distance, her expression unreadable. The school bell rings, signaling the end of the day. Tsubaki packs up his things, still trying to wrap his head around everything. Keed comes to pick him up after class, her cheerful voice echoing in the hallway. Tsubaki is still getting used to this kind of attention. She publicly announces that they started dating yesterday, causing quite a stir among their classmates. Tsubaki is mortified by the sudden attention. Keed doesn't see what the big deal is. She doesn't want some other girl stealing him away. so she's making her claim clear. She tells him that even if there are circumstances and a goal, the fact that he's special to her doesn't change. She squeezes his arm, determined to keep doing couple things. And so, Tsubaki and Kied's trial and error relationship begins. Kied is full of energy, while Tsubaki just tries to keep up with her pace. Their days are spent doing typical couple activities, shopping for clothes, sharing burgers, and spending hours at karaoke. Tsubaki finds himself swept along by Kied's whims. As they leave the karaoke booth, Tsubaki admits to himself that this is his first time doing things like this, and it's far more fun than he ever imagined. Kied turns to him with a serious but playful look, suggesting they should take their relationship seriously and truly try to enjoy it while they can. Suddenly, Kied pulls a bold move, pinning Tsubaki against the wall. The public display of affection draws surprised gazes from people passing by. Leaning in close, she whispers to him, asking what he'll call her now that they're supposedly dating. Tsubaki is completely flustered by her proximity. Blushing deeply, Tsubaki manages to mutter her name, Kied. She looks at him with a satisfied, gentle expression. Kied later apologizes for being a bit too pushy, but Tsubaki realizes he doesn't actually mind. In fact, he's starting to find her company quite comfortable. They continue their walk, and Kied suggests taking a break at a family restaurant. Tsubaki, still a bit dazed, simply agrees. Kied clings tightly to his arm as they walk. Tsubaki is acutely aware of her closeness, wondering if she realizes how much it's affecting him. Kied playfully tells him she wants him to feel her presence, leaving Tsubaki feeling like he can never quite win against her assertive personality. Unbeknownst to them, Himawari is watching from a distance. She feels like something has fundamentally changed within Tsubaki, as if a switch has been flipped. Himawari is overwhelmed by a tangled mess of emotions. She doesn't want things to be this way, but she doesn't know how to fix it or what she truly wants. The next day, Tsubaki arrives at school, reflecting on how intense yesterday was. He tells himself he needs to keep his composure around Kied today. When he sees her, he gathers his courage and greets her by her first name. "Good morning, Kied." She looks back at him with a surprised expression. However, Kied treats it like a joke, calling it an outdated pickup line. She says she's not interested in that, leaving Tsubaki completely confused given their conversation the day before. Himawari spots them and is struck by a wave of shock. She can't understand why Tsubaki is acting so familiar with Kied. Oda suddenly appears and pulls Tsubaki aside, demanding an explanation for what's going on. He wants to get the facts straight about the looping situation. Tsubaki explains everything to Oda, how he's been looping the same week repeatedly and how he tried to get Oda and Himawari together to break the cycle. He reveals that he eventually started dating Kied because she was looping too, but this morning, she seemed to have forgotten everything that happened between them. Tsubaki notes that Kied acted as if it were the first time they had ever spoken. The inconsistency in her memory of the loop is troubling. He feels a deep sense of wrongness about the situation. The timing of her forgetting everything right after they started dating seems far too perfect. Tsubaki ponders the logic of the loops. There are no clear rules, but Kied's convenient memory loss feels like it's being manipulated by the phenomenon. Oda points out that Tsubaki is effectively single again in this cycle. He also notes that things are still incredibly awkward between Tsubaki and Himawari. Checking his phone, Tsubaki sees the date, Tuesday, May 20th. He knows that if he sleeps, he might just wake up on the 14th again. Oda, ever the peacemaker, suggests they try to patch things up with Himawari. He calls out to her as she walks past, trying to bridge the gap between his friends. The three of them sit together on a bench. Oda shares a snack, trying to recreate the usual three-way split they always had as kids. Tsubaki and Himawari sit in awkward silence, both feeling the weight of their unresolved feelings. Oda tries to keep the mood light, but the tension remains. Oda encourages them to just be like they were in the old times. Himawari and Tsubaki both respond half-heartedly, unable to truly relax around each other. Tsubaki watches Himawari and senses a change. She's not just awkward around him. She seems uneasy around Oda too, barely even looking at him. Later, Oda asks Tsubaki why he went out of his way to ask for permission to confess to Himawari. Tsubaki explains it was a matter of principle. Tsubaki admits that in a way, he feels like he needs to defeat the version of Oda that exists in Himawari's heart to truly move forward. Oda tells him to forget about the formalities and that he'll support Tsubaki no matter what. He doesn't want their friendship to be so stiff. He then looks Tsubaki in the eye and asks point-blank if he's looping. Tsubaki is taken aback by the sudden question. Tsubaki's silence confirms Oda's suspicion. Oda smiles, noting that having the ability to restart as many times as you want is like having a cheat code. He pats Tsubaki on the shoulder, telling him not to stress too much. Tsubaki feels a weight lift as he realizes he doesn't have to rush his decisions. Tsubaki watches Oda walk away to join his other friends. He thinks to himself that since he can restart, he can take his time to come up with a better plan. He and Himawari start walking together. They talk about their future high schools, and a playful bickering match ensues, reminiscent of their usual dynamic. Tsubaki feels the atmosphere between them isn't so bad now. He remembers how Himawari looked at him yesterday and wonders if there's still a chance for them. Himawari begins to ask about what happened yesterday, her voice hesitant. Suddenly, Tsubaki grabs her by the shoulders, his expression intense. Himawari is startled. She notices that Tsubaki is making the exact same face he made yesterday, the one he made right before he confessed his feelings. Her heart races as Tsubaki stands firm. He's decided that even if he crashes and burns again, he has to say it. He's ready to try confessing once more. Tsubaki doesn't hold back, gripping Himawari's shoulders as he pours out his heart once again. He tells her plainly that he's always liked her and asks her to go out with him. Himawari is caught off guard, her eyes wide with shock. Himawari is visibly shaken, her face flushed as she stammers for a response. Tsubaki watches her intently, wondering if his direct approach will finally work this time. He waits with bated breath for her answer. A heavy silence falls between them as Himawari looks down, her eyes beginning to well with tears. Tsubaki's heart sinks as he realizes the answer might not be the one he's hoping for. The tension in the air is palpable as she finally prepares to speak. Himawari finally breaks the silence, her voice trembling as she apologizes repeatedly. She cries out that she's sorry, her face a mask of grief and conflict. Tsubaki is left stunned, his confession met with a flood of tears instead of acceptance. Himawari tries to explain, telling him that she doesn't dislike or hate him. In fact, hearing that he's always liked her made her truly happy. Tsubaki is bewildered, unable to understand why she's saying no if she feels that way. Tsubaki reaches a breaking point, his voice filled with desperate confusion. He asks her directly why she won't say yes, even going as far as to ask if it truly has to be Oda in her heart instead of him. He clenches his fists, unable to back down. Himawari looks at him through her tears, admitting that she was so focused on herself that she never noticed his feelings. She feels a deep sense of guilt for not truly knowing the person she thought she was closest to. She tells him it's not his fault, but she can't forgive herself for being so oblivious. Images of their childhood together flash through her mind, emphasizing the long history they share. Despite being together for so long, she feels she never truly faced him. This realization leads to her painful conclusion. She can't be his girlfriend because of her own perceived failings as a friend.